Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today, finally, I've managed to get my hands on a retail sample of the BitFenix Prodigy. Now, many of you may remember that I did get a look at this in a hotel lobby a few months back, but they finally got round to getting everything polished up on it, and it's now released ready for retail. Now, when I looked the price up, I was gobsmacked because I didn't think it was going to be this cheap. You're looking at a price of $59.99 in the UK and about $79.99 in the US, which, let's face it, that's pretty kind of budget kind of numbers. But we need to have a good look round it. Now, before any of you start moaning about my attire and saying, oh, he's just wearing a vest and all that kind of stuff, it's literally red hot, finally summer in the UK at the moment. If you can imagine working in this kind of environment or these kind of temperatures, and then adding in all the computers as well, things get pretty warm. Plus, I didn't want to spend time messing about, changing my clothes and stuff. I literally did want to just get on and make this video because the case was technically released today, and it's taken a little bit longer than usual for the case to finally manage to get to me. So I've literally just pounced on it. Now, sadly, I've not got an ITX board to hand, so I'm going to give you a good look round it. We can have a look at some heat sinks in there. I'll show you some radiators in there as well because it does have water cooling support. We're going to have a lot of choppy bits of the video for me to show you, but I will try and cover it as best I possibly can do, considering I'm trying to get this done quick, sharp. But anyway, I'm going to be quiet, rejig the camera and bring you in for a look. Right then, peeps. First of all, we'll start on with the outside. A lot of you are going to kind of relate the design of this like to the Apple Mac G5s, and there will be a white version later on as well, so even more of you are going to see the kind of Mac kind of reference then. But basically, the outside, you've got these handle stroke feet. Now, it's a new material that BitFenix are using, and it's still got the kind of soft touch, but it's a plastic, and it's practically indestructible. You can beast it, and this stuff just don't break. You quite literally would have to start hitting it with a hammer or bending it to some really extreme levels to get these bits to break. And it's literally so that you can see that it's to really give the top. If you hear any noise in the background, it's my blinds kind of moving. So it really does give it, the top and bottom, a lot of kind of springiness and suspension there. Okay, you're not going to get it on the side if it gets tipped over, but that way you've got a lot of protection there basically. Also really good carry handles if you're going to take it to a LAN. It's really not very big either. I'm looking around for my ruler so I can show you quite how big it is, but it's 30, I reckon we're probably about 35mm long if I measure it in the most scientific way possible. 350mm long, and then you're looking at about 400mm tall. Width wise, it's 250mm wide, so it's actually a really compact case. Now, on the side, we can see here, apologies for the light, we're still trying to get things fixed with the lights, but you got the power button on the side and the reset button, headphone and microphone, and also your power and your activity lights, and then two USB 3s. Around the back we have a fitted 120mm fan, which you can swap out for a 140 if you want. You've also got two expansion slots, PCI Express slots, whatever you want to call it. So you can get a double width graphics card in there if you want. Because of the size of the case, it's ITX boards only, but a lot of ITX boards come with a PCI Express 16 slot on them now, so you can still run that double graphics card. Power supply in the bottom. Now, power supply in the bottom is a full-size ATX, which is still relatively quite rare for ITX systems. But the good thing with that is when you think about it, if you're going to be running, say for argument's sake, I'm just taking this out now because if you to put the power supply in, you put it in that way. So you screw it to the plate that you've got, and then you slide it in from the back, and then you put the screws back in, and that's the way you get it in there. But the reason why an ATX power supply is good is because small form factor power supplies can be a bit limited wattage wise. But for argument's sake, with this, if you had an ITX system in there, which you can get Z77 ITX boards now, you could have a 3770 Ivy Bridge i7 in here, and then if you wanted, you could have a 680 or a 690 in there, a 7970, whatever, because there is room in the case, but you need the power supply to be able to power it. So by running a full-size ATX power supply, it doesn't hinder you too much with power supply issues, as in not being able to get enough wattage. Now, in the side, you can see that we've got, I'm just trying to see whether you can see it, you can. There's a large mesh area here. Now, if your graphics card, you've got a long graphics card, obviously it's going to be pulling air in. It's going to be able to pull air in straight from the side. Now, that's going to be brilliant for keeping things cool, because you'll be able to, it'll be pulling fresh air in, but at the same time it's also going to be pulling dust straight in as well, because if we take the side off, you can see there's no dust filter in there. If I hold it up, you can see it's just plain straight through. There's no dust filter in. Having a look on the side though, it's something we were discussing earlier with Steve-O. You could technically, if you wanted to, be able to Dremel this mesh section out, and there is enough room around the outside for you to be able to fit a plexi window. You could easily get a thin slither of double-sided foam tape in there, so you could put a window in it if you wanted, if you would prefer to, you know, get that dust down and just be able to see your graphics card. Now, when we move inside, I think we might have to rejig the camera slightly, just so that I can make sure that you can see this, and it's not going to end up all looking too dark. So I'm just going to recheck the camera, and I'll come back in a sec. Right then, so we've rejigged the camera a bit, but I just wanted to whiz around the back and just cover the back panel. I've already taken the two screws out, and you pull the back panel up, literally just the same as the front. But when you turn it round, on the back panel, you can see that you've got all the parts there for the your front panel connectors. So when you take the back panel off, you could end up having to remove all your connectors from the board as well. So that's worth noting, but do you know what I mean? You can't have everything with a small case like this. Now, while we've got the back panel off, we can see that we have a fair amount of room really between the back of the hard drive cages and the door. We have a good 45mm of room between the back of the hard drive cage and the door. Another thing that we kind of need to measure as well is the amount of room that we've got in the enclosure for the power supply. And there is 180mm of room there total. Now, one thing that you do need to remember, that doesn't mean that you can just fit 180mm power supply. That means that's all the room you've got, full stop. So what I would tend to say is try and stick with 160mm power supply maximum, because obviously you're still going to have the modular connectors coming out the back if you've got modular a modular PSU. Another thing I would say is you're going to have all the cables that you're going to need fitted ready when you push the case in from the back, because you're not really going to get much of a chance to do much with it after that. Now, cable routing wise, there's a cutout here. There's two cutouts on this side for you to be able to get cables up and round onto the top for the motherboard. And then round on the other side of the case, you've got another two cutouts, and then also another cutout on this section. So there's a fair bit to cover when we get to this side. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total hard drive racks. There's just the normal toolless hard drive racks, which you can put a solid state drive in every single one of these as well. Now, the top section has a quick release pull out hard drive cage. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, oh, that's well handy, but why would I want to do that in an ITX case? Well, the whole idea with this case is it's big enough to fit full-size graphics cards in. So there we have a GTX 580, that's actually the MSI Twin Frozer 680, sorry, Twin Frozer, which we're going to be reviewing very soon. But also, just to give you a kind of a reference for size, you can easily fit a 690 in there. See, there's plenty of room. You've got another kind of 20 or 30 mil towards the back. You could get a 6990 in here if you wanted. Wouldn't be a problem. So you've got enough room in here that way. Now, other things that we need to consider are cooling the CPU. Because if you're going to be having a monster rig like that, you're not going to be running a tiny CPU, you're going to have a decent PSU, so you're going to want some decent cooling. Now the reason why the case is so high is because you can fit full size CPU coolers in there. So that's a D14, alright. Excuse me. I've not got the fans on this, and it would be a bit tight to get the second fan on with the D14. Another thing that you need to remember is, depending on the board that you use, the ITX boards are renowned for having the CPU's coolers all over the place. So if you're a bit worried, then you can, if you so wish, because on the roof there's a removable plate here, and then once we've pushed that out, basically that then opens up 2 times 120mm fan mounts. So technically you could bolt straight in a H100. Now, from the optical bay at the front is underneath the fans. So how much room have we got from the top of where the fans will mount to the bottom of the optical bay? Now, there is just over 50 mil. So basically you could mount a H100 in there with a single set of fans, and then it would be right on the front of the optical bay. So the optical bay would then end up covering up one of the fans, which wouldn't be that good, would it? But thankfully, because I'm just going to remove the front of the case, and I'm going to get a screwdriver. Oh, I didn't mean to drop it on this. Now, front of the case, we've got removed. Now, if you have a look, we've got the optical bay section here, and then there's 4 screws. I love this case so much. Literally, we buzz these screws out quick. I'm just looking around to see if there's any other screws, and there is. So, remove the 4 screws in the front. Where can I put the screws? I'll put them over there. So out these come. And then on each side of the case there's 2 more screws up underneath the door. So we remove these ones. It's the same on the other side. Now I could have taken the could have turned the camera off, but I might as well just show you where they are, and it doesn't take very long. Oh, I caught that screwdriver as well. Ta-da. Right, back on this side. I'm going to keep hold of it. I know you're not going to be able to see very well, but they're in exactly the same place. It's just so that I can stop it from dropping out. Come on, my beauties. I'm loose. Thank you. Right, so I'm just going to remove these screws before I lose them. Right, so we're back round again. So I've removed the optical bay completely now. Now let's face it, I've explained my thoughts on optical bays anyway, so we really didn't need this anyway. So now we have all of this room to be able to fit our H100 if we wanted. So if we put the graphics card in there now, the thing is, the way it's placed, it doesn't matter how much of this room downwards you have, because the graphics card is literally set off to the left of where the CPU cooler would be. If we turn it around this way and I show you, graphics card is here, CPU cooler literally sits off to the right hand side of it. So there's ample room. You can go right down to your motherboard heatsinks if you want. Now, but by saying that, go right down to your motherboard heatsinks, that means you've got all of that room for radiators and fans, or a radiator and fans, and there is 200 millimeters of room there. So technically, if you wanted to, you could have your H100 in push-pull easily. You could have one of the monster 240 radiators that are 80 millimeter thick, push-pull, and there would still be enough room. The only thing that you'd have to think about would be your pump and your reservoir, which you could fit in the bottom if you really wanted. Now, this hard drive rack in the front is also removable, and I'm just going to whiz it out quick, and I'm also going to just quickly grab one of my water cooling radiators. But there's 6 screws in the bottom to remove the hard drive rack. So we're just literally, I know I'm doing this all in front of you on the camera, but I'm just trying to show you. Bonk. Right, so that's the second hard drive rack removed. Now you may be thinking to yourself, where am I meant to put my hard drives? Well, let's face it, if you're running solid state drives, you can pretty much stick them up anywhere, and it's really not too much of a problem. If you can still stick a mechanical hard drive in the floor somewhere if you really wanted. It's really not an issue. You can get pretty creative. But if you have a look now and see how much room we have available to us, it's a pretty cavernous amount there. Now, in the front, you can see that there's a 120mm fan fitted from standard, but you can get a second one in there as well, and the gaps are right for a water cooling radiator. Now, if we put a radiator in there, I'm just going to lean around and grab one. If we put a radiator in there, like that, and it lines up, pretty much, yeah, we can get those in there. As you can see, that the radiator will cover part of the radiator in the roof. So one thing I will say is my best advice to you as far as water cooling this would be is just try and line this up again just so I can line it up with my eyes. Because I have to admit, I thought this bracket in the front would have fit a water cooling radiator, and it doesn't. The second set of fans are actually off, and I've just realised why. See, I should have read up. Basically, you can get 120mm fan in there, but the other mount is for 140mm fan, so you can get in. So you could technically, if you wanted to budget, still mount a 240 in the front, but you'd have to have the bottom fan bolted through the case, and then the top fan would have to be bolted to the radiator. It's complicated. Basically, it would mean that you put the fan on the radiator first, then come around this side, and then bolt this one through. You still could do it, and it would mean that you were bringing fresh air in across the radiator. But I have to admit, considering the hard drive cages and stuff like that, I would probably just put a radiator in the roof, and then you're left with an ample room then, and there is quite literally loads of room to be able to fit that. And then all I would do is I'd have the intake coming in the case, and then I'd have the radiator pulling hot air out of the case. This may end up getting blocked off, but it's not really too much of a problem. There's going to be well enough room there. And like I said, if you added a couple of sets of fans in, your radiator is going to be right down here anyway, so it's going to be pretty compact. But we are talking about an ITX case, and the fact that we can put a full-size 240 radiator in the roof in push-pull is absolutely amazing. Front is a little bit complicated, but we can still get one in there if we want. One thing that I do need to say is another thing that you can do in the front is there's support here for 200 and 230mm fans. So there are 200mm radiators that you could fit in here, and I actually do have one, so I'm just going to grab one quickly, because you can fit one of those in there as well. I was going to whiz the fan off, but I'll just show you. just going to get one out of the box because I have a Phobia 200 fan here. Oh, sorry, Phobia 200mm radiator here. So you could easily get that in the front as well, and it would go in. Let me have a look that way. That could fit in. This actually does ever so slightly just go underneath the optical bay. You'd still be pretty limited with radiator space in the roof if you wanted to do it, but if you run a 30mm radiator you could do. So technically you could fit a 200mm radiator in the front as well. It's pretty, considering the size and the price of this case, there are so many options. So right, just to recap, you can technically, if you really wanted to, put a 240mm radiator in the roof, but it will hinder your, 240mm radiator in the front, but it will hinder your ability to put a 240 in the roof. There's also support there for you to be able to put a 200mm radiator in the front. If you did run a 200mm radiator in the front, you could get a 30mm thick radiator in the roof. Alpha Cool do their all copper 30mm radiators. They're actually really good. So you could get one of those in the roof with a single set of fans, or an XSPC EX240 in the roof with a single set of fans. But if you wanted to go nuts, you can put full-size 240mm radiators in the front. Now let's face it, if you're going to go for a full-size 240, that's going to be more than enough to cool a CPU. You're going to start going down the GPU route, things are going to get massively complicated massively quickly, because you will be talking about multiple radiators then, and like I said, it really is going to be very difficult to see what can go where. But it would all technically be possible if you were willing to put the time and thought and definitely the measuring in. But right guys, I can't really think of much more to cover with this at the moment, short of actually putting bits in here, but like I said, I just wanted to pounce on this the second it got through the door. So what I'm going to do now is try and put this thing back together, and then we'll move on to a conclusion. Right then peeps, on to the conclusion, and I do apologise for the rush nature of this video. It was meant to have, the case was meant to have been here 2 or 3 days ago, and today's the NDA release day, so I've literally, as it arrived, I just pounced on it quick, because I wanted to get it covered and get it up for you all as quickly as possible. Hopefully we've covered pretty much everything, maybe more than most people would have done anyway, especially when the water cooling side of things, but like I said, I just wanted to get it done so you could all get to see it. Now, award. There's nothing else I can give this case but the gold award. But very, very rarely will you ever see a gold award with a value for money award as well. And for £60, this case is amazing. Really, really is good. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is the first case that BitFenix have not only, they've designed from the ground up themselves. Now, the way the industry works, with a lot of people work, you end up buying or you use like an OEM's chassis, and then you add bits to it, you add your own kind of design bits around it. It's just kind of part and parcel with the way things are. As far as I'm aware, this is the first designed and built case that BitFenix have done in-house, and it shows. It really screams with the amount of thought, and the fact that this is heavily aimed at enthusiasts and people that know what they want, because there's so many different options with it. Just the fact that you can take the optical bay out of it is an absolute masterstroke. The fact that it's 60 quid as well is just brilliant. But basically, this is such a niche part of the market that's been not really been covered. The fact that they've now brought us an ITX case that you can fit a full-size power supply in, you can fit massive graphics cards in, you can fit water cooling in, you can fit full-size CPU heat sinks in. There's ample hard drives if you want to end up using it as kind of like a server or something. But not only that, if you want to use it as a LAN case, you've got these handles which are bomb-proof. There's nothing really I can moan about with it. There really isn't anything I can moan about with it. It may have been nicer to have maybe had a little bit longer for the power supply, but let's face it, if they'd have had it slightly longer for the power supply, you wouldn't have been able to have got the hard drives in the front. So it would have all started getting massively complicated. And there are plenty of 160mm power supplies out there now that you really, it's not that much of an issue. You just need to be careful when you're buying your kit. But the thing that really, for me, that this screams out is the fact that they've managed to get out the box water cooling and massive CPU heatsink support in there in an ITX case. Couple that in with the massive graphics card support, you're on to an absolute screaming winner. The fact that they're actually going to be doing a white one as well, and I've not even had to ask for it, it's just a masterstroke. Honestly, there's so many things. I sit here looking at this rig now and it's making me think, oh, you could do this, or you could do that, or you could use this, you could use that. Water cooling is going to be brilliant. If you start talking about you want to water cool your graphics card, it will be possible, but you're just going to have to be massively careful with the bits that you use, because like I showed you, if you put a full-size 360 in your front, it then starts to cover up the radiator and the roof. I would say probably the optimal way around this would be to use a 200mm radiator in the roof, and then like I said, a 30mm radiator, 30mm thick 240mm radiator in the roof, like the EX240 from the XSPC, or the 30mm thick Alpha Cool Nexus, all coppers. And I think that would probably be the kind of sweet spot, because with any of the other combinations, like even skinny 240s in the front, I think you're going to start running into, you know, problems where it's not going to start fitting properly. But other than that, this thing is absolutely epic. I honestly haven't got enough good things I can say about it. BitFenix, absolutely brilliant. This quite literally is, and you can quote me on this, this is the best BitFenix case ever. This actually puts all of the other cases that they've ever made in the shadows, and it really does show what they can do, because I was slightly disappointed with the Shinobi XL, because it was a bit basic, and you could see that they'd not necessarily cut corners, but it was just they hadn't really thought things out properly. This, I love it, properly love it, and that's why, without a second thought in my mind, this thing deserves the OC 3D Gold Award and the Value for Money Award, because let's face it, for 60 quid, I don't think you could ask for much more. And on that note, I'm going to say this is Tiny Tom Logan with a big grin on his face, ready for the weekend, because this thing is awesome. With the BitFenix Prodigy Gold and Value for Money winning case out. Yes, I was getting lost for words then. I really did start getting confused. But anyway, I'm going.